Hey,
For you.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
We were just talking about the storm that's happening out here because I'm on the coast. So that huge coastal storm that's just taking out all the houses and trees and all that shit's happening right now. It's kind of nuts.
Really?
Yeah, dude, we made the news like in Australia. Like that's how bad it is. Like our little beach towns are just flooded. They're just lakes.
That's crazy.
I know. So,
I
yeah,
like your office.
thank you.
Yeah,
All
it's
my
cool.
favorite things.
Yeah.
And of course, I've got you up everywhere because, you're one of my favorite things, as I've told you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for coming on my show. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. I know your
I would
time is
love.
very valuable.
Oh, it's all good. I'm excited.
Cool. So here, I thought a cool thing to do would be, well, first of all, I'm going to make this your best interview, so you put me on yours, but we'll see how that goes. Secondly, I just want to take my path with you, because I think it's very significant. It hits a lot of your major points.
Okay.
So the very first podcast, and this was probably like 5 years ago, that
Mhm.
I ever listened to, I didn't even know what a podcast was, is my guy that worked for me said, "Oh, have you heard this MFCEO?" And I'm like, "No, what's that? What's a podcast?" I didn't even know what a podcast was. It was so foreign to me. But I started listening to you then, and it was it was awesome. Like it made me feel like in my entrepreneur world, which was very small at that moment in time, I felt like there was somebody else out there that understood what I was going through. So you were my first with a podcast, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh, that's why we did it. The main reason that Vaughn and I did that show was because I realized that a lot of the things that were second nature to me because I grew up in an entrepreneurial household were not. They weren't things that other people understood. And, there was a very unrealistic picture of what entrepreneurship looked like on the internet, and I felt like that was completely out of line with what I had known to be true and observed to be true the entire time. So that's where that whole project started. It started to bring realizations to business owners like you, that this is a fight and this is a struggle and there's a reality to winning and losing. And it's I'm very thankful that we did it because there's a lot of people out there who have really done well since then. It's been going long enough now to where you can really see the fruits of the efforts put in. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and so you obviously went away from MFCEO for the last couple of years with Real AF.
Mm-hmm.
So you're relaunching MFCEO. Is it for those
Mm-hmm.
reasons?
Yeah, because I really think so. When I switched over to do Real AF, it was more about awareness. Like I saw a lot of people with their heads down, not really understanding geopolitically what was happening, what was going on. And I felt that it was the most important thing I could do was to bring awareness to that. And that also was coupled with a little bit of frustration with the MFCEO project. I felt like it was pretty complete at that point in time, and that I had shared everything that I knew at that point in time, and that I was ready for something different. So those two reasons were the reasons I switched. But then over the course of Real AF for the last 3 years, what I realized is that okay, now people are starting to understand some of the things that are going on. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And so when we think about what we need to do to really make America a better place, the reality of that situation is that we have to start with ourselves, and we have to start with building ourselves into better people. And I realized the whole time I'm talking about this on Real AF that I have already provided the solution, and it was time for me to really get back and start talking about that. I recognize there's a whole generation of young people that are coming out of high school, going into college age, really unprepared for what reality is and unprepared for what it takes to succeed. And I know that there's a lot of parents out there who have, they're scared because they realize that their kids now have been brought up in an education system that's failing, and their kids are about to go out in the world. And so like, I feel like the content that I can provide along that parallel will be good for what we need to do in this country, which is, elevate our personal standards, become better as a unit, and individually, but also, you know, become successful. Because one of the things that our current, you know, government really propagates is mediocrity and being in poverty. And they tell us all these things, and teach us all these things about not being successful. And the whole reason that they teach us these things is because they benefit from these things. And so I feel like that the content that I could provide with the MFCEO project is definitely something that's needed right now. And that's really the reason why I'm doing it.
I love that. You know, and I think part of why I resonate with you so well is I grew up in the generation of tough love. You know, I was a latchkey kid. There was tough love. There was no coddling. There was no participation awards. And so like when you speak, I can handle it because I resonate with it. But I know like with like you were just talking about with this younger generation, maybe they've been a little coddled. Everybody's a winner. They're not really prepared for the real world of what's going to smack them in the face when and if they actually leave their houses and their safety and their comfort and that sort of thing. So I like that you're doing that. And I really hope that they reach for that and that the parents don't just let them live at home forever because they're scared to go.
Yeah, I think we, from what I can tell, we've got a lot of parents who realize that they left their hands off the steering wheel for too long and they're looking for a way to correct it. And so a big part of what my initiative moving forward is going to be is actually getting parents and their older kids kind of on the same page of what needs to happen for them to become successful. So I feel like the temperature has changed. I feel like the temperature is definitely not just ignorance anymore. People recognize that there's a problem. And usually when people recognize that there's a problem and they have enough awareness to notice that, they are on the lookout for a solution. So I hope that, you know, that content will help be part of that solution.
For sure. So do you have an answer? Because I obviously speak with lots of entrepreneurs all dealing with similar situations with staffing and things like that. Is there a magic well that all these people are getting money from that makes them not have to work or not stick it out at jobs? Like, why is every place short on staff, but yet all these people haven't gone back to work? I'm so confused as to how they're supporting themselves.
Well, in your state, you know, you can earn up to $100,000 a year on government assistance in various ways. So, you know, there's these programs across the United States that are allowing people to earn literally six figures by just applying to these programs. And unfortunately, you know, we all understand that there's going to be hard times, and we all understand that there's going to be times where, you know, you may need some government assistance, but the government assistance that's being marketed now is not a, you know, it's not being touted as a temporary solution. We hear about universal basic income, you know, and all these ideas across, you know, all the different political spectrums of states. And the situation and the reality is they don't intend for this to be temporary. Their goal is to remove people from the workforce, because when you remove people from the workforce, you set up a situation where these people become completely dependent on the assistance. And when they are completely dependent on the assistance, they vote for the people who provide the assistance so that they don't have to like go out and survive. And so you have to understand that, like, when people are in this mindset that we're talking about, you know, the idea that might appeal to you and me and other people watching this, of freedom, right? We want to be free. We just don't want to be oppressed. We want to have the ability to go out and earn. We want to have the ability to go out and build. Those people don't actually have that want. They're actually afraid of being free, because what they hear is, shit, I'm going to have to go out and work. I'm going to have to go out and do this. I'm going to have to go out and do that. And that creates a scenario where, you know, a capitalist economy just won't survive. And so now we're seeing this with the introduction of ridiculous amounts of technology that's making actual humans, you know, obsolete. And so we're in the middle of a situation that could go one of many ways. And a few of the ways that it could go could be really, really bad for humanity. And so, you know, that problem, there's very real reasons why that problem exists, why there's no employees. But basically it comes down to they can survive without working. And a lot of people don't realize, because they've been told their whole life that capitalism is evil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that capitalism actually provides the highest quality solution, the highest quality of life for all people, whether they are actual entrepreneurs, employees, or just people in society that have, jobs. And so the best solutions always come from the people that live in their communities. And that's what a capitalist system is about. Like, for example, one of the things that I do is I help build, new gyms for some of the high schools around here, so that, because I believe that as a former athlete, that you learn about a lot about life through the programs of training and working hard and competing. And it's been invaluable to me. So that's something where I could see I can help and I can invest in. Amazon's not coming into my community and doing these things.
Right.
And then, so it takes people in their community to be successful to then solve the problems inside the community, which, as we talk about this in RSA and things like that. But the reality is that we're in a dangerous situation where the human element is intentionally being worked out of society, which makes the humans very vulnerable long term. And a lot of people think that sounds crazy, but it's not crazy, and it's not, and it's coming fast. It's not coming slow. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting what happens. I think people are starting to recognize it, but I'm not sure enough people recognize it.
Yeah, or quick enough. Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, I have to stop myself, because sometimes I'm like, oh God, why am I doing all this? Does it even matter? But for me, I just put my head down and keep doing what I do, which is trying to help people and hope that, in helping people. Yeah,
we have to
enough.
Keep fighting. I mean, it sucks, it sucks, and it's frustrating and demoralizing, and it can sometimes make you question like what your purpose is. But you also have to realize that that's their purpose of their agenda. Their purpose is demoralization, demotivation, and then, eventually acceptance, which is like, oh, well, I'll just join them, and you become part of them. And this is how cultures and societies crumble and are toppled in history. So it's intentional. It's not an accident. And it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I think a good thing that you've done, which helps combat this, and, I'm a huge fan of it, I promote it all the time, is 75 hard, as a mental toughness, as a physical thing, as forcing you outside your comfort zone, as far as preparing you to, in my mind, be strong enough to handle all this kind of stuff. And that's why, for me, I told you this before, like 75 hard saved my life. I was, mid-pandemic, we were trying to figure out how to keep our doors open, help people. My kid went off to college. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I didn't know. Luckily, I just joined Arate. And so I started getting some hope as far as like the entrepreneurship. But 75 hard got me to like sort of pour into myself, which made me a better person for everybody that I needed to be there for.
Yeah, dude. And that's the game. That's the whole game that we're playing here. A lot of people, they think, when they think about like becoming excellent or becoming a higher, better, stronger version of themselves, they think about it from, a selfish place. I need this, right? And that's okay. That's where it starts, because you do need it. But what people fail to realize, because most people just don't have the belief that people actually give a fuck about them, is that when they overcome those struggles and when they change their life, there's other people that are going to see that happen and change their lives. And the ripple effect of that, of raising standards when it comes to our own personal excellence in all areas, is actually what's going to fix the country. There's no politician that's going to come in, even if we had a violent revolution and, let's say, got rid of all the politicians and started fresh. Like, look, dude, what about tomorrow? You're still going to be eating fucking McDonald's, bro, which is poison. You're still going to be, treating your neighbor like shit. You're still going to be fucking wanting a handout. And like, these things, they have to change here, and they have to change here before they can change anywhere out in reality. And so, one of the messages that I've been on and trying to put out for the last 3 years is that personal excellence is ultimate rebellion.
Yeah.
Okay. We look at what's going on and we're frustrated and we're dissatisfied and we're angry, and it makes us fucking pissed. Okay. But the reality is the people that we should be mad at are the people that we look in the mirror and see. Okay. How much have we actually done as individuals to preserve the best parts of this country? How much have we done to correct the problems in our communities? How much have we individually done to make sure that we're setting the best possible example, understanding that the next generation is watching us? And as a whole, we've done a fucking shitty job. That's just the reality. There's lots of people out there that are good people. There's lots of people out there that do the right thing. There's lots of people out there that try hard. The problem is that lots of people is still a small minority. And so until we get that understood, that all of us as Americans and citizens of this country have an obligation to live at a higher standard, because that's what will actually change the entire culture of America, which is what needs to happen. Things won't get better. They just won't. And we could change politicians. We could change figureheads. We can have Democrats. We can have Republicans. We can have Democrats. We can have Republicans again. We could go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But until the individual understands that becoming excellent is a obligation of citizenship, or it should be seen that way, we're going to have a hard time changing this.
I agree. Well, and it's exactly like what you said, is people are watching. Like, I had no idea until I started my journeys and posting about it, because I have a love-hate with social media, and older, it's not normal for me. It's forced. And I hate documenting everything I do and writing inspirational stuff. But at the same time, you don't know who's watching. And I've had so many people reach out to me because of my postings about 75 Hard that are doing it, have started doing it. I inspired them, and I had no idea anybody was even watching or caring. But it goes to show that, not only do you have to do good, but you have to show people so that it inspires them to want to do good as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. How do you contend with that? Like, I have such a love-hate with that social media posting. Here's what I'm doing. Like, you seem to do it really well. I really struggle with it.
No, look, I don't really care for it either. The truth of the matter is I think that I think social media has a big part to play in why culture is so fucked up. It's not something that I truly enjoy either. I just understand that I have things that people find of value, and I feel obligated to share them. But I don't, there's no, I don't know, romanticizing social media to me. It's a tool that I use because people are on there and there's attention. And when I can get people's attention and I can talk to them and a couple of people change, I see that as worth my effort.
Awesome. So some of the magic of 75 Hard that I love, and I've yo-yo dieted my entire life, and I've always struggled with weight. That's why I became a meth addict as a young girl, is because I couldn't figure out this whole weight thing. And I think a lot of it was like how I perceived my body. But for me, I feel like the magic of 75 Hard comes from that consistency. Like, every diet I ever did had a built-in, if you cheat, get back on, or do this, or there was never such a harsh consequence for coming off of it. And I think for me, that was the magic, was that consistency. And it took me 3 tries. Like, the first time I accidentally failed at day 48. Took one day off, got back on, pulled myself off at day 60 because my dog had died and I just couldn't do it anymore. Got back on a month later and I finally got the magic of it. But I realized I needed that consistency with no cheats in order to really build that habit, and then to finally see the results. Like, here I am. I've done it 2 times now, 3 times now. And I'm like, oh my God, I can actually see the abs that I've been working on for 10 years. And I think of you in my head because I always was like, oh, you're just a CrossFitter, you're thicker, you're older, you can't do that. And then I realized you were just a fat fuck. You just needed to lose 10 more pounds and you could see your abs. Like, holy shit, it was really that easy.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because people like to criticize it and they say, oh, it's not sustainable. Well, you're not understanding that 75 Hard is just one part of a year-long program called Live Hard. And it goes from the day you start all the way a year, and it ends the day that you started the year before. And so what people don't understand is that, diet culture has been talking about cheat days and cheat meals for, the last 20 years. Okay. I think it really started in the late 90s. We started getting this idea of the cheat days. And the problem with the cheat day is that when you are addicted to food, okay, like I was, when you go, 6 days and then have a day of gluttony, all right, you're not ever truly breaking the habit. All you're doing is stretching out this agonizing 6 days, and you're never truly like changing. You're just going, you're the whole concept of the program is like work, cheat. Okay. And so you're rewarding yourself with the thing that has created this terrible version of you that you are so unhappy with every 6 days at a minimum. And that's not something that will ever break you out of the habit permanently. And so for us to really break a habit, this idea of, that we can go back to the things that are causing us the addiction, and you would know this too.
Yeah.
Look at it like this, dude. If you're trying to kick meth and I say, all right, 6 days, and then on 7th day, you get some meth.
Yeah.
All you're going to think about is that fucking 7th day. That's all you're going to focus on. And when you can't focus on anything but that, it makes the 6 days moving into that go, it sounds like 60 days.
Yeah.
All right. So we're the mental psychology that is permeated regular diet culture for the last 25 years is fucked up. Okay. It's like saying to someone who's an alcoholic, yeah, bro, I need you to quit drinking, but you got to have, 1 day a week, you're going to go out and get fucking hammered. Like it doesn't work. And so, I hear this a lot from, everybody who does the program properly. They say the same thing you just said, but the people who haven't done it, they're the ones who are saying, oh, that's too rigid. It's too hard. It's too this, it's too that. Well, do you want to stay the fucking same, bro? Or do you want to change? Because this shit will change you. You know what I'm saying? And the evidence in the real world is there. And anybody who's done it knows what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And the more you do it, the higher up you go in your understanding of these things. So like, for example, when I finish a 75 hard round now, that on 76, bro, I'm not like eating shit. Okay. Yeah. Because I've equated so much in my mind that eating these foods and indulging in these habits has created this version of me that's weaker, softer, dumber, more apathetic, less ambitious, just a fucking shittier version of myself. I don't want that shit. Like, to me, that's like, I don't even want it near me. And so that's how far you can go because, dude, I used to be the person who could not pass up a drink at all. Okay. It didn't matter. If someone had a beer and they handed it to me, it could be right now. It's fucking 1:30 in the afternoon and I'd be drinking it. And if I went to a restaurant, I couldn't order anything that I knew was healthy. Like I'd sit at the table and I'd look at the menu and I'd agonize because I knew what I needed to order, but I couldn't order it because I was too weak mentally and too addicted to the food. And so we can't correct this behavior by rewarding it consistently with the same behavior. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the real secret behind the whole no cheating, no cheat meal thing, is that it actually breaks you of the habit so much so that you're actually surprised. You're like, holy shit. Yeah. I have never gone this long without that. I have never gone this long without blowing, eating an entire pizza or going out and getting hammered with my friends. Like 75 days, like, bro. And now all of a sudden you start to realize how powerful you actually are and how much, because dude, that sounds crazy to people. Like if you would have came to me when I was 350 pounds and say, bro, 75 days, 0 cheat meals, I would have been fucking terrified. Yep. But dude, once you get through that first 6 days and you get to that 7th or 8th day and you pass that first time where you had to cheat and you've been cheating your entire life, bro, you get a lot of power from that. I can remember the first time I did 75 hard and I got through the first weekend and we had a group chat. There was like 10 of us in it. And all of us were like habitual, weekend partiers. And we all got to like the next Tuesday and all of us were like, fuck, dude, that wasn't that hard. That was actually a lot easier than we thought. And you know, you gain momentum and gain power as you go through the program, which I think is a really cool thing.
It is. And the thing that I love about it is every time I do it, and full disclosure, I still haven't got through the full year yet. I try to, whatever, I keep failing, but I've done 75 hard and phase one numerous times. But the cool thing is, you know, the first time was so hard. Like I was there chugging water at like midnight, peeing all night, so miserable. Like, how do I do this? And now when I do it, dude, I have it so down, and you can make it as easy or as hard as you want. And I think that's the big thing, that people make it such a big deal. And I'm like, listen, if you're just starting out, go walk outside, do yoga inside. Like, it's workouts. There's nothing very specific about, you have to go hard on heavy training every single day, and pick whatever diet you want as long as it's productive. But I think people like make it into this huge thing that it doesn't need to be. So they set themselves up for failure, and they don't realize that, you know, you can make it as hard or as soft as you want. And each time you do it, for me, I make it harder. Like, I diet harder, I work out harder, I just make it harder because it gets easier and I want to keep challenging myself.
It's definitely scalable. There's no question. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You know, people like to say, well, you should run for your outdoor workout. Well, motherfucker, like you're not me. You're not 260 fucking pounds. Like, I have people that are 400 pounds that do this program, and I've had people lose 300 of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's scalable for a reason. Like the whole program was built so that, you know, and by the way, to your point, you're right. The more you do it, the harder you try to go in it. Like, for example, like this time I'm on day 45 today. And my goal was to give 75 hard days. And I mean, like, as intense as I could go in my weight training, and get everything done properly. And I got sick for 4 days. Okay. So for the a couple days, last week, there were 4 days where I couldn't lift. So all I did was walk both my workouts for 4 days. Now I had to scale it back down because I was injured and sick. And then, you know, now I'm getting healthy, I'm scaling it back up. And this is the lesson that it teaches you. It teaches you not to fucking quit or throw shit off to the side because you're uncomfortable. It teaches you how to continue to move forward even when things aren't ideal. And that's a big thing that people struggle with, whether it be in business or any area of life, is that if conditions aren't ideal, they either, you know, don't work or don't move, or they fucking use it as an excuse to stop. And these things, you know, that's not reality when it comes to building yourself or your business or anything that you're working on. Most of the time, it's going to be inconvenient. Most of the time, the weather's not going to be perfect. Okay. Most of the time, the circumstances are going to be more difficult than what you think they should be. And the ability to build yourself into a human that can, you know, persevere through those circumstances, regardless of what's going on, is ultimately the key to success in any area of life, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. So many people are unwilling to be uncomfortable or to do things because they don't feel 100%. Like, they're just looking for that out. I've had so many people tell me, like, yeah, I did it, but then I got sick, but then I regretted it. And I was like, well, maybe next time you'll remember the regret and push yourself through it instead of allowing yourself to just give up. So, right. You know, a lot of times it's a process, and it does take people many times to build up that mental toughness to even get through it one time.
Yep. It does. And every time that you end up, you know, having to start over, that's just the time you put in before that. You said you failed on day 40 something.
Yeah.
Those 40 days, you still got something out of that. Now you apply that and you start over at 75 days. And now you have, over 100+ days of actual work towards this. That's another magical thing about the program, is that if you actually do start over when you fuck up, there's no way that this thing won't change who the fuck you are at your core.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. For me, it was accidentally, and I didn't even realize it till the next morning. I sprung out of bed and I was like, oh, fuck, I worked out inside both workouts yesterday. I screwed up my schedule. I didn't even realize it. Like I didn't even know it at the time. And like you said, it's an integrity point, right? Nobody would have known that. I could have easily continued. And, would I have felt okay at the end? I mean, probably because I was doing the work, but not really because I knew I cheated the system. And so I spent that whole day going, are you ready to get back on this? Like, I don't know if you should do this. And I immediately just started again before I could get in my head and tell myself all the reasons why I shouldn't do it.
Plus you want to capitalize on that momentum. You don't want to stop and then have to start again. You've already got the momentum. Just pick it up the next day, start over, and go through the full 75.
Right. Well, but that's why you put in the distance in the later phases, right? Is so that people you have to. That's part of the toughness.
Yep. Because the reason there's a mandatory 30-day break between phase 1 and phase 2 is because people need to understand what it's like to operate without a structure and then learn how to operate within a structure. So they need to, like, after you go through 75 hard and phase 1, because most people do them pretty close to each other, because they have the momentum, a lot of people will say, well, I'm just going to keep going, which is fine. But here's what you got to understand. That doesn't count towards the program. All right. So you have to take at least 30 days off from counting towards the program. Now, during that time, people will figure out, and this is usually what happens, they start to slip a little bit because they're not being held by the rigidity of the program. So they might have a few drinks. They might eat some food. Some people might go fully off the rails after a few days of moderately going back to what it was. And so the whole point of them having to have this break is for them to understand that these are perishable skills that we create and that there's still a lot more work to do. And so I personally have found, and I found this to be true from people's feedback, that starting phase 2, which is simply the same 75 hard program, but for 30 days, it doesn't have the extra tasks that phase 1 has in it, but starting phase 2 after that break is actually the hardest part of the program. That's the part where people really fucking struggle. And and there's a lot to learn there. I think it's also one of the highest points of the program where you learn the most. And what you really learn is, man, when I got momentum, I don't want to fuck it up because it's so hard to get it started again.
Yeah. Well, and then again, the more you do it, the easier it is to sustain that, even if you're not on a rigid program, because you don't want to do those things that make you feel bad.
Right. So, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I love 75 hard, because for me, it parallels my program, which is about 66 days, about 75 days. And we take everybody off all medications and all that kind of stuff. And they do everything sober and they have to work out. It's part of the regimen, but it's enough consistency for them in overcoming addiction where they start to see the magic of feeling good, of how working out makes you feel as good as doing dope did, or better because you don't have the side effects, and give them enough time and consistency of doing the same thing to see the magic that comes on the other side.
Absolutely, man. It just takes that time, dude. It takes like this whole idea, and all the research behind 21 days to break a habit. I think it's bullshit. It's not long enough. It's not reality. I think it takes 21 days to get into a good rhythm. And then you start to then work the habit out of you past that point.
100%. Well, the whole 28-day program, the magic of AANA, it was never about the time frame. It was how long insurance would pay for the program. So there was no science behind this being a magic number. It was literally just how long insurance would pay for it. And so that's what they built their whole program around.
Yeah. It's no mistake too that all of the branches of the military, their boot camps are all in that range of 9, 10, 12 weeks. And it's that time frame seems to be where the magic happens, where people truly change their habits.
Yeah. Agreed. And then obviously the longer you can sustain it, the better you're going to have a permanent change in that habit.
That's exactly right. And that's why the live hard aspect of the program is so important. I encourage people to look at that as a yearly accomplishment that you want to accomplish year by year by year. And even if you don't, even if you fail, like I failed last year, I had shoulder surgery, my shit got fucked up, and I wasn't able to finish my phase 3. The reality is that the work, the lion's share of the work still stuck. Okay. So like it still made me strong, much, much stronger. And that's what people have to realize is that, like, you know, dealing with your own ability to have high discipline and have control over your outside circumstances, especially in an addictive way, you know, these things require tune-ups. It's a diminishing ability. So like you have to, you know, this is why for most people, when it comes to getting sober, it's an abstinence policy for life, because what the amount of discipline that it takes to actually socially consume and then go back to normal is a high level for someone who's an addict. And unfortunately with food, it's worse because you got to eat it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can't tell someone abstain from food forever. Like what do you have to, how can I get off of heroin if I have to take a little bit 3 times a day to survive?
Right.
It's a very difficult thing that people don't talk about. And they look at it as just lazy, or these people are just fat and they're this and that. And the reality is, dude, is that no one fucking ever teaches us discipline. They never teach us that discipline is a skill set that we must develop. They teach us that, you know, oh, that person is disciplined. This person is disciplined. I wish I had discipline too, but I don't. So I'm fucked. And that's how society teaches us. Yeah. And because of that, we don't ever understand that discipline is something that we must create by doing things, you know, consistently. And not only is it something that we must create, it's something that we must maintain. If we do not maintain that, our skill set diminishes. It's just like any other diminishing skill set. So I think it's important for people to look at it that way. I think it's important for people to accept that that is reality when it comes to your discipline. And this is the reason why so many people can do well. You know, like a lot of people are confused, especially in the weight loss place, right? Like they're like confused as to why was I able to lose 100 pounds 3 years ago, but here I am, I've gained it all back and I can't seem to get it going again. Well, the reason that you were able to do that is because you mustered up enough dissatisfaction to force yourself through. You caught some momentum that you built, okay, and it pushed you through. And then when you got to where you wanted to be, you went exactly back to who you were before. And that's not something that is going to produce the result that you want. That way that you lived before produced this result where you were unhappy. And now you've learned, because you lost and gained weight, that going back to those things isn't what makes you happy. You should allow that lesson to take roots in your brain. Living this life of overindulgence is not what makes me fucking happy. Living a life where I celebrate every weekend with alcohol and drugs and fucking overindulgence of food, that's not what makes me happy. What actually makes me happy is living my life in a functioning, healthy body with all sorts of confidence and mental discipline, and feeling like I'm in control of my life, as opposed to me being a, you know, paper bag blowing in the wind where the wind takes me, which is how most people live. And so when you can get people to really understand that, and unfortunately, it's hard to understand unless you really go through the process, you know, I think that I do think that's what the program creates. I think the program creates this awareness where you start to realize that the things that you do that you think you love because they're normal to you and they're your culture are the things that are actually making you miserable and they're ruining your life. And I know that's what it's done for me. Like for me, bro, I used to drink all the time. I used to talk about it. If, you know, back on the MFCEO, do you guys talk about how much whiskey I could drink? I thought that was fucking cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I lived that life, and I realize and recognize now that over that lifestyle, you know, wasn't good. And did I have some good times? Yeah. But the truth is, dude, is that all the bad shit I've ever done in my entire life, I did when I was fucking drunk, or when I was fucking drinking, when I was in that lifestyle. And, you know, eventually you get to a point where you just don't want it anymore. And I don't. And I think that comes from the awareness of tuning myself over and over and over again over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of it is, like you said, giving enough time where you can observe these things. Like for me too, discipline was a big thing. Like I grew up with the generation of you eat everything on your plate because they're starving kid in Africa. Like
Same.
no matter how old I get, I feel terrible if I don't eat everything on my plate. And so what I realized is like, okay, in order for me to be successful, eat once a day. Like eat as much as you want because you have no control, obviously, but then limit how much you eat. And we call that intermittent fasting. And it's very successful for me with keto. You know, I do the right thing, but I know that I don't have that. I have like a glitch in my brain that makes me want to eat everything. So I've learned to be smart about it, and it works really well for me. And I think so many people, like they either want a magic pill that just fixes them and they do all the right things because they don't want to do the work, or they can't find the thing that works for them that is a lifestyle. It's not a diet, it's just how they live.
I also think a lot of people just don't believe that they have this inside of them. I think a lot of people believe that, like, when I talk about discipline or I talk about these things, that that's like off the table for them because they're in this place where, you know, because dude, when I was 350 pounds, I used to look at people and be like, why the fuck did I get the 350-pound gene and you got the fucking jack tan and looking good as fuck all the time gene? Like that pissed me off. And dude, you know, I assumed that the reason that they were the way they were is because they automatically had qualities that I didn't have. That was the assumption. It wasn't like, I actually didn't even really think much about it. I just assumed that they had things that I didn't have. And I think most people do. And that's a belief issue in people's, in their own selves. And I think that comes from cultural conditioning that's intentional, that comes through our education system. I think part of it's intentional. And I think the other part is, you know, when we're young and we say we want to do all these things, people cheer us on. They say, oh, Andy, you want to be an astronaut? Yeah, I do. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. And then, you know, as you go through school and as you become a young adult in high school, you know, you start being taught by people who, a lot of those people failed at what it was they wanted to be in life, and they wound up teaching. A lot of teachers are not like people that wanted to teach. And so there's a very high disparity between the good teachers that want to teach and help and the teachers who are just there because they didn't have another fucking choice. And so you end up becoming in contact with these people who have lost, who have fucked up their lives, who are bitter, and they teach you at that vulnerable age that, hey, man, you know, I know you think you're special and I know you think that you have all these things, but bro, you ain't no different than anybody else. Sit down, shut the fuck up. And that's the experience that I had growing up. And I found that a lot of people have had that experience. And it's unfortunate because the reality of us as humans is that we are capable of so much more than what anybody could ever believe that we are capable of. And when we have other adults and we're surrounded by other adults that, you know, talk us out of those dreams and basically shit on our ideas that we have for ourselves, I think that's one of the biggest tragedies going on in the world. And so it causes people to not believe that they can do these things. Like, dude, if you go sit down with someone who's like me, like I was, where I was 350 pounds, and I say, hey, bro, if you do what the fuck I say, I can get you to a point where you'll never even want to cheat. Ever, ever, ever. You'll never fucking want to cheat. Like, you'll look at that shit and you'll say, I don't want that shit. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't believe you. They won't believe you. They'll be like, dude, there's no way. Yep. Like, I can't drive past a Taco Bell and spend, you know, and get, like, I used to be that person. Yeah. So like, I understand the belief system behind it. And, you know, it's just hard. It's hard because, you know, we live in a society of social media, like you mentioned before, where there's all kinds of people on there that are fucking fucked up, who fucked up their lives, who are bitter, who think that the way their life went is somehow, you know, an indication of what you or anybody else is capable of. And so you get these people out there who try and work hard and start doing things, you know, and I think there's a lot more positive out there, but the negative sticks. And it sticks in people's brains and it frustrates people and it makes people not believe in themselves. And I think one of the best things about the Live Hard program is that if you do it really, if you do 75 hard one time, you'll at least be to the point where you don't give a fuck what other people say. Like that, it'll get you to that point very, very fast. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about the program, because when it gets people who have always like truly not believed in themselves to a point where they don't give a fuck what other people are saying about them, because they know how powerful they are and what they just did. Now we're starting to create some power internally for these people where they have the confidence and the self-esteem and the ability to, you know, really kind of like move past the negative aspects of our culture and society that have, you know, attacked us all for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And I hear it all the time. People are like, oh, you this. And I'm like, dude, I'm 51. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like, they hold themselves back. I mean, even to a lesser degree, like what you were saying, like I have so many people say, God, I wish I could have purple hair. I love your purple hair. And I'm like, well, fucking do it. Like, why would you not do it? If you want to do it, if it makes you happy. Oh no, because of this. And I'm like, well, do you have a job that says you can't? No, but, and it's like so insane to me, like how they will purposely not do things they want to do because of what they think other people will think, what other people might say to them. And it's like, who fucking cares? Like, make yourself happy. Like, why do you care? And if more people did like what we did, and didn't care what people thought, people would be so much happier. Like, it's amazing to me what they'll settle for because they're afraid of what people might think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, that's why I'm out here preaching what you do, because the other little part about this, here was one other magic thing I wanted to talk about 75 hard. So at first it was like my whole day was consumed with trying to get it done on top of working. It's like, oh, I don't have time for all this shit. But then when you start to get the groove of it, it actually made me more productive. Like I not only was doing the program, but I was working and completing more tasks. And I realized the addiction to the hormones of completing tasks. And so it's like, even though I was doing twice as much, I felt even twice as much better, which is amazing to me. And I love that. And I try to preach that to people. Like, yeah, it seems time consuming, but you're going to create time when you do this. You're going to be shocked at how much more you're able to achieve.
Yeah, there's two things there too. Like, you know, one is the mismanagement of time that all of us have. Okay. All of us fuck off most of our time. And the program really forces you to come to terms with how bad you've been about time, because it's overwhelming in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So you know, you, like you said, you'll be chugging water at midnight trying to get it in. So what it does is it forces you to start being organized. And what ends up happening is that, like you said, people start to recognize, oh shit, okay, I'm getting all this shit done. And it lifts up their mood and they actually have more energy. And, you know, this is something I talk about quite often that's misunderstood a lot, is the idea. A lot of people think they're burned out. A lot of people that think they're burned out are not actually burned out. They're not applying any sort of structure or energy to a goal or task or outcome that is of higher self. Meaning, if you work at a shitty job that you have no passion for, that you are no interest in, yeah, you're going to be fucking burned out, bro, in like a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's going to happen. Do you want to change that? Yeah, man, I want to change it. Okay, well, here's how you change it. It's not a fucking Netflix marathon, bro, and a bunch of pizza and shit. That's not what's going to fix it. It's not a fucking vacation where you go get drunk for 4 fucking days. That's not what's going to fix it. What's going to fix it is you deciding what it is that you actually want to do and then attacking that every single fucking day. And what will happen is you will lose the feeling of burnout. You will be accomplishing much more, and your whole entire being will rise with energy, power, and purpose, moving you towards the life that you actually want. When you thought that you couldn't go on another day, but when you were doing the shit that you didn't understand or didn't like or didn't want. And so this concept of, you know, I need a self-care day and I need mental health day and shit, bro, I could promise you, if you dig into what it is, the fuck that you really wanted to accomplish, and you start seeing progress along that, you're not going to need a fucking self-care day, because every motherfucking day is a self-care day, because you're working towards becoming the best possible version of yourself. And you're doing a project, whether it be your business, or, likely it should be your business. You're building something that you are passionate about, excited about, and you're not going to need to dread it. You won't dread it. And in fact, you'll be accomplishing that much more moving that direction. And so, I think there's a lot of victim shit. As you know, I talk about this a lot, that, there's a lot of things in culture that are geared towards getting people to think that there's something wrong with them, so that now, me, the fucking internet therapist, can fucking monetize it. And like, bro, that's not good either. You know what I'm saying? Like, getting people to sulk in their victimhood and where they are, as opposed to turning them the right direction and saying, go, okay? That's what we need. We need more people that are going to fucking help people like get realigned and go, not get them convinced that they have this thing wrong with them that they can never get over, they can never solve, they're always going to be a part of their life, and create perpetual victims because we want to sell them our next fucking book. You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's exactly why we have our modality. We don't buy into you have a disease and you're going to be an addict your whole life, because that just gives people an out whenever they need or want it. So we're like, you fucking created it. You overcome it. Now used to be who you are. You haven't used in 10 years. Why are you still a fucking addict? Why are you calling yourself an addict? And so that's what we do with our program too, is trying to eliminate that whole victim thinking, because that's a way to overcome it.
Yes, it's the creation of an identity in our brain.
Yeah.
Once we start saying, I am this, you are that. In your brain, you are that. And like, there's nothing you can do about it to get rid of it. And so like, we have these people who say things like, I am depressed, or I am anxious, or I am, bro, you might be experiencing that right now. That is not who the fuck you are.
Right.
Okay. You need to understand that we experience these things. These are not who the fuck we are. And we have to, if we start to see them like that, now we're in a situation where we're not building a mental jail around our brains that keeps us in here. When we start to recognize that there's another existence outside of these identities that we create for ourselves, and that it's up to us to go make those come to fruition, now we're empowered. Now we're like, fuck, I don't have to fuck, bro. One of the biggest things that helped me get over my anxiety issue was just identifying the fact that it's unrealistic for me to not feel some sort of anxiety in the fucking life that I live with the responsibilities that I have. Okay. So like, what was happening to me is that I was trying to get through a day with zero anxiety. All right. Well, that's fucking impossible for what I do. So anytime that something would come along and it would say, it would spark my anxiety up, I would get like super anxious. And I'm like, fuck, this fucking anxiety. I can't take it. And like, it would create this like whiplash effect, because my expectations weren't reality. Once I understood that anxiety is just a byproduct of the life that I choose to live, and that my job is to fucking do things that other people can't do, now all of a sudden I'm not creating this identity that I'm an anxious, depressed person.
Right.
I just understand that these things do happen, and there's something I'm going to work through. And instead of being consumed by them all the time and feeling like I'm, trapped in this fucking cycle, now I understand that these things come and go, and I work through them and I overcome them. And then when they show up, I remind myself, okay, this thing here showed up today. That fucking sucks. Well, I'm going to do what I need to do to get through that. And it totally changes the dynamic of what people do. It's so popular right now for people to create some sort of victim identity for themselves, because the internet rewards the attention.
Right.
They get a lot of likes. They get a lot of shares. They get a lot of attention when they start to cry about what it is that they have going on.
Right.
That's fine. It's okay to be vulnerable, but what it's not okay is to be a professional vulnerable victim on the internet, because what that does, because what people do is they make one post being vulnerable, they get a lot of attention, and they're like, fuck, that worked. And then they start doing it again, and then they start doing it again. And before they know it, they've created an actual identity of victimhood that is them. And it's them, not only to the people on the internet, but it's them in their own brain, which is the dangerous part. So we have to be very careful not to get sucked into the victim identity culture, because the reality is we aren't fucking victims, bro. There's bad shit that happens to all of us. There's bad times of all of our lives. And these are just things that we have to fucking work through.
100%. Well, and that's what we try to teach people. Like, yeah, you have trauma. Guess what? We all do. You're a human being, but that doesn't give you an excuse to not be causative over addiction.
For sure.
Handle it. Quit being the victim of it. But it's also interesting. I have one more question I want to ask you, but I just want to end on this subject, is that growing up in this time is if people don't have something wrong with them, they feel like there's something wrong with them. So they have to identify with like, oh, I have bipolar. I'm this sexuality. I'm that. Like if they're so desperate for an identity that if they're like normal, they feel like there's something wrong with them.
Absolutely, dude. How about this identity? How about a highly functioning human being that works hard to try to be the best that they can, and overcomes the bad shit when it comes their way, and inspires others by me overcoming that. I think that's a pretty good identity to have.
It's a great one. It's the best one. All right. So I got to switch gears because I've been dying to ask you this question. So I was very fortunate. I'm part of Arate. We got to come to your house. And within seconds of me getting there, the first time I talked to your wife, Emily, I was like, dude, is your house haunted? Like I felt like the vibes, like deep. I mean, it was also raining and it was, all that kind of stuff. And she says, fuck yeah, it is. Let me show you these videos.
Yeah.
So what is your thoughts on that? Are they just decent ghosts hanging around? Are they evil entities? Like, what is your feelings on this?
Well, people, so I live on a historic property for people that don't know. And it was owned at one time by the former president of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant. It's highly spiritually active. Okay. There's things that happen there all the time. I've got full security detail on the property all the time. They see things literally or have things happen on a regular basis. I don't think any of it is negative. I've never had a negative experience there. But I mean, there's a lot of undeniable, like we've got 3 or 4 videos of actual ghosts on camera. We're going to do a whole episode on Real AF about it and show the footage and stuff. But yeah, dude, you can feel it right when you get on the property, and 100%. That's not just you. That's most people they get on the property like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because, the guy who used to live there was one of the most important American figureheads in the history of our country. He was the person who was basically responsible for the North defeating the South in the Civil War. He was the guy that was on the ground, freeing the slaves, killing the fucking slave owners that wouldn't free them. And that people don't know a lot about Grant, but Grant was one of the best Americans that we've ever had live here. And, I think about it a lot when I'm walking around. We have a tree in the front yard that's 310 years old, and which is older than our country by like 60 years. And I think a lot about like what he was thinking about when he used to walk around those grounds, like the decisions that he had to make. This guy had to make decisions that cost people their lives, literally every single day. And, that's heavy shit, man. Yeah. And so like, I think the property just has residual energy on it from its history and all of that, that you could feel because it's very obvious when you come there.
It is. So, and I know this is a loaded question. Do you believe in heaven and hell, or do you believe in continued life?
No, I think that we're all spiritual beings. I think that we choose to come here and fulfill certain roles. I think there is God. I think that's a real thing. Yeah. I think the way that people understand heaven and hell is a little bit skewed. And what I actually believe is that there's a line of actual what we call life, and then there's another dimension on the other side where we are all spiritual beings that communicate without talking. I've had some experiences that have kind of shown me this, and I think prayer's real. I think God's real. I think that everything that we talk about with spirituality is real. I think it's been intentionally kept from us. I think the power of prayer is real. I know it's real. I think the power of visualization and seeing things, I think all of these things are real. And I think they're intentionally kept from human beings because that makes human beings more powerful. And so I don't necessarily think that it's heaven and hell. I just think that there's another dimension on the other side where you are assigned roles in this world of consciousness, and your job is to go back and forth between these two dimensions to do certain things that of your choosing. And so I think we all have a unique purpose and a unique role on this side of consciousness that we have a job to do, so to speak. And I think that's the goal of what we're placed here. And then, you know, when that's done, we go back over there for sort of for like reassignment, right? And I think there's a lot of things that we don't understand. And I know a lot of people hear that and they're going to say, well, that sounds fucking insane. But like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, fuck, I'm just telling you what I think. So,
no, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think because, you know, you and I, you know, we're around the same people. There's a lot of people that are very Jesus and God, and not that I disagree, but I enjoy the fact that I actually think similarly to you in the same sort of belief system. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I feel the same way.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think a lot of what we're told over the course of our you know, when you think back over the last 2,000 years, and then you understand that prehistory started 12,000 years ago, okay, and then they're telling us we have dinosaur fossils from 2 million years ago. Well, what happened between 2 million years ago and 12,000 years ago? They don't teach us that. They don't talk about that. And if you talk about it, you're fucking crazy, okay? But there's artifacts and you know, feats of engineering that cannot be explained even by modern day technology. I mean, you have blocks of stone 400 feet in the air to create the pyramids, which, and what most people don't realize is the pyramids used to have a mirrored external surface. Okay, so like we don't fucking know, and we're not told the truth. And I think a lot of the things we are told is to keep us humans at a low frequency level, unhealthy, unaware, uneducated, poor, okay, so that we can be controlled by a very small amount of the richest people on the planet. I think that's a lot of what's been going on. I think it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I hope that during my lifetime, you know, we can see some of the things that are classified, you know, and we can figure out what the fuck is actually going on here, because I can tell you this, they're not telling us the truth.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I hope that as well. And there's just too many things that are unexplained. And it could be that nobody knows how to explain it. We're just not that old as a human race to even have explanations. But I agree with you about them not wanting to know our power. Do you remember the movie Crouching Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, something like that? I
never saw it, but I know I remember when it was super popular.
It was super popular, but it showed you like where you could be as a human running across treetops, like these feats that we would be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But it's like, but what if it's not? What if we have those abilities and they're telling us we don't? So it can really like shift your mindset as to how we've been sort of brought down as humans of what our full potential is, like what you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. I know you have a hard stop right now. You have other podcasts to be on, and I appreciate you spending your time with me.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I apologize for the delays that we've had getting this together, but I enjoyed the conversation very much.
Yeah, same. Looking forward to your call this afternoon. I think you're on it, right?
No, it's next week, I think.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for coming on my show, and yeah, hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, thanks, Angie.
Yeah, thanks.
Pleasure to be on the show.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, see you.
Bye.